Racial identity development theory helped me examine and understand my own racial identity development because I used to think that if I did not see color, that I wasn't racist. However, if I didn't acknowledge somebody's race, then I don't really see them for who they are and celebrate their culture and race. I realized that I was taking away from the oppressed by not recognizing their individual struggles as a race. This led to a certain guilt and shame, but I was able to use these experiences to educate myself on how to best support other races. I developed my racial identity because I am an Israeli Jew. Even though this isn't a race, I realized that I can hide my Jewishness behind my white skin. I also was in high school when I became aware of my white privilege. My best friend, who was a black boy, and I used to live in a predominantly white area. I was causing trouble at a park and he was there. When the cop arrived at the park, he only yelled at my black friend and not me, even though I was the one who was causing the problem. I realized that the cop only saw the black boy in the midst of all the white teenagers, and he hyper-focused on the black boy. The cop didn't even speak to me once, other than to ask if I was being bothered by my black friend. It was a horrible experience, but an eye-opening one. I realized that I had never really taken into account the plight of black men and women into account, especially when it came to police interaction. Besides my experience in high school, another experience where I witnessed institutionalized racism was with my black nephew. Then, this very year, my black nephew was walking around his neighborhood with another friend. He was wearing a sweatshirt and was skateboarding at the skate park. It was getting late and a cop pulled up to the skate park. He had both boys sit on the curb and questioned what they were doing and why they were out at the park. It had to have been at least 2 hours before city curfew, so the boys were absolutely allowed to be skating at the skate park. However, the police never once questioned the white teenagers who were also at the skate park. My nephew and his other black friend were the only people questioned by the police as to what their motives were. This has kept me safe, or what has kept me safe from institutionalized racism is my skin color. As a white woman, I'm aware that my white skin awards me a level of privilege that people of color don't have. Police do not question my motives when I'm at a park. However, when people find out that I'm Jewish, there have been prejudice incidences. I'm able to hide the fact behind my skin color, so I have an escape that people of color don't have. My nephew is in his adolescent stage when his institutionalized racist event occurred when he was only 15. I was in young adulthood when I learned of the event. Being in young adulthood is when I learned of the racist act. I was not ignorant of the idea that institutionalized racism exists. I was aware that this type of racist exists. In young adulthood, Erickson said that a sense of identity is already created. I was aware that as a white Jewish woman, there are people in power that judge others immediately based on race. As a young adult, I'm also aware that a cop would communicate with me differently because I am a white woman. I offer very little intimidation or fear in a cop. Therefore, I assume a more gentle approach would be taken by the police officer because I have witnessed the difference in communicating between police officers and white and black men and women. According to the article, Critical Race Theory, Opportunities for Application in Social Work Practice and Policy, if communication is increased through training and best practices among racial groups and people of power, there can be social change within communities. Thinking back to my own experiences, if the police had proper training and practice in communication with various racial groups, maybe the cop in question wouldn't have been so judgmental to my nephew or my black friend in high school. My nephew, being only 15, is not quite aware of institutionalized racism, as I am as a woman in young adulthood. I would respond differently now in my own high school experiences by speaking up for my Black friend and addressing the cop directly. As a white woman, I have the power to use my white privilege to help those in oppressed positions. As a woman now preparing for a career in social work, it is my job to help stop the ignorance of those in power. A police officer may not have had the training required to deal with diverse groups of people. A lot of assumptions are made based on race that has either been taught in childhood or acquired through negative experiences. It is my job to help break down those barriers of injustice and create a safe and equal environment for people like my nephew.